Hello and welcome back to video 3 in this Emma Tries series. And if this is the first video that you are seeing, in a quick kind of summary, this video series is me trying a range of authoring tools and kind of exploring who they would be good for, what people might use them for, and the kind of skill level that you may need in order to kind of get the most out of the authoring tool. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Emma Berry. I'm an e-learning developer and instructional designer with a background in illustration and graphic design as well. And I was a die-hard storyline user, but I'm kind of branching out and want to see what else is out there and what cool kind of creative things we can make with other authoring tools. So if you haven't seen those first two videos where I tried Chameleon Creator and GeoScenario, then do go back to my YouTube channel and have a look at those as well. But for now, today we are looking at Genially. And I was actually recommended Genially on my LinkedIn after I put up a post asking for any kind of suggestions for an authoring tool for my next personal project, which is called Healthy Habits. And so many people recommended Genially. So I signed myself up and have been absolutely loving it so far. So here is the dashboard that you get when you first sign up. And it's really quick and easy to sign up, as with most kind of web or cloud-based authoring tools. And from here, you can create kind of a blank project. So if I click Create Genially, or you can choose from a huge range of templates. So they have absolutely tons of different templates. And some of them are behind a paywall. So I've only got a kind of sort of basic free account. But if you want access to kind of more of these templates and things, you have to obviously subscribe and pay a monthly fee. But there's things like games, there's interactive courses, there is, if you're doing like live sessions, and you can choose and kind of edit these and sort of, so you don't have to start from scratch. So there is absolutely tons of them. There is also like a gallery as well, where people that have created their own Geniallys can upload them, and you can see other people's creations and share other people's creations as well. So that's kind of the benefit of this being a cloud-based platform. So let's just have a look at the kind of pricing structure before we go into the functionality. So there's a variety of different subscription options with this. You've got a personal subscription, God, that's a hard word to say, which gives you kind of like basic functionality, I guess. And this is really handy, where you can kind of compare what you get with each different plan. So I'm on the free plan, obviously, and you get access to basic things. You can like import stuff, you get the templates and the interactions and all that kind of thing. But there's quite a lot you don't get with this. You've got like a Pro Lite, which is more if you're going to be using this probably sparingly, I suppose. You might use this maybe for a project every now and again, but you don't necessarily want to use it for your main authoring tool, which I think this might appeal to quite a lot of people that would maybe use Genially as a supporting tool as opposed to their main e-learning tool. And then you've got like Master and Author, which are good for kind of maybe small businesses or teams, because you can add in multiple seats, and you can see with the Author one, you get pretty much access to everything. With Master, you get most, but you sort of miss out on a couple of the AI features, and you cannot download for SCORM with Master, which for me was a bit of a downside for this, in terms of you can only download SCORM if you've got like the best subscription, which I feel like that should just be a basic function, really. I mean, I can understand not putting it behind the free plan, but I feel like that should be available for the other two, really. I know you can download in other formats, which we'll come into as well, which means you can embed a Genially course into other things like Rise, and you can view like the HTML version offline and everything. But I feel like with this kind of being marketed as a gamification e-learning tool, not being able to download for SCORM unless you've got like the biggest subscription just feels a bit, I don't know, I'm not sure about that. You also don't get any access to kind of the branding stuff until you go up to like the master and author subscriptions either. And this also includes being able to remove the Genially branding as well. So you can only remove that, I think, when you go up to the master subscription. So just a few things to consider in terms of if you are looking at using this and how you want to use it. It might be that if you're kind of wanting to take away the branding and put your own stuff on it and sort of use it within an LMS, you might have to consider whether it's worth paying the bigger subscription. But in terms of it being value for money, it's not that expensive. So if I go on to master here, if this was something you were going to use for your main authoring tool, it's actually very well priced. So €300 a year, which if you're in the UK works out around about £257 a year, which to be honest isn't that bad at all if you look at the price of other authoring tools. So yeah, it's one that you could potentially, if you're running a small business or you're on a small team, could potentially still be affordable alongside another authoring tool as well. Okay, so enough talk of money. Let's have a look at the authoring tool itself and the functionality and all that kind of stuff. So here you have your space, and this is where you create all your projects and you can group them into folders. And anywhere you see a star just means that that is behind a premium function, essentially, because I don't have a page plan. You can also access the templates from here, your brand kit if you've got access to that, and you can change the fonts and the colors and all that stuff. Get inspiration, and this is where you can see other people's work. So if I click on that, you can see what other people have been creating, which is cool. I really like this. And it's really nice to see how other people are using the functionality as well. And activity. So you can share your courses or your games or whatever it is you've created, and you can actually track how many people have used it and viewed it and whatever as well. I think here as well, you can also track if people have changed it, because you can create teams. So you can add people, as you can see here, you can add people to your team if you've got obviously multiple colleagues that are all going to be using this. So you could see if anybody's made any changes or anything as well. So if I clicked on like overview, for example, it won't let me see this because I'm not on premium, but you'd be able to see who last edited it and everything. Anyway, let's go into the course that I've been creating. So if I go back to my space here and click edit, and we will have a look at what I've been creating using this. And like I said, I've had really a lot of fun playing around with this. It's really, really easy to use. Straight away, kind of going into it, I was able to very quickly pick up the functionality. It's a really simple authoring tool. Everything is very clearly laid out as well. This UI is nice. It's easy to maneuver. We can see the functions we've got down here. So you've got access to the AI things. That's our document colors, navigation. We've got the canvas size. And I'll quickly pause on this a minute because this was a big selling point for me, in that when you first create your course or your game or whatever it is you want, you can actually choose preset sizes based on devices. And I knew that with this project, I wanted it to be mobile focused. So being able to just choose a mobile sizing straight off the bat was actually really handy. And I've actually tested this on my phone as well. So to check the sizing and everything. And it does translate over really well. So this was nice, actually. I liked this. And infographics as well. That's a really cool feature, particularly if you are going to be embedding these things into other software like Rise. Being able to have like an infographic that is kind of sized nicely is a bonus. And things like Square, so for example, for things like social media as well. And you can obviously do custom sizes too if you are creating something very specific. We've also got transitions. So this is how your slides move from through each other, the same kind of functionality you get on things like PowerPoint. And there's a really, really good range of different transitions as well. So we've got horizontal, so almost like the traditional slideshow. Vertical, which is more like if you're scrolling down your phone, for example, and center. And this is kind of those kind of fade through back, that kind of thing. So yeah, you get a really good range with these as well. And it took me ages to choose which one I wanted, actually. I was like going through all of them. And we have navigation as well. So they have three navigation modes, and that's standard, so that you'll get like a player, almost like with Storyline, where you get the next and previous buttons. Video, where you time your slides and it will just automatically go through them. And microsite, which is what I've got it set as. And this is where I have created that custom navigation myself. And these kind of preset buttons, the arrows won't be visible. So it's almost like turning the player off. Okay, and you can also zoom in and out down here. Delete and add pages. I really like that this is clear. Some of the other criticisms I had of the other e-learning authoring tools that I've been looking at is that just these simple functions like a delete button and an add page button weren't really obvious. So having this just always on screen and really clear is a big bonus. And you can easily flip through pages like this as well. I just like having this easy go-to functionality like right there is great. And just commenting on the Genially subscriptions again, this little logo down here is what they're talking about when they say you can remove the branding. So if you don't have that kind of higher level subscription, then you will always have this little logo present on your courses. So just something to weigh up. If you wanted to use this, you would need that higher level plan to be able to get rid of this. I mean, it might not bother you. If it doesn't, then cool, no problem. Okay, so you can view your pages here. And again, we've got an add page function, which is super clear and easy to see. And you can see things as a grid. Let's move this one out of the way, or as a list. So I use the list function just because then you can see your page as well and you can see what you're working on. You'll also notice this kind of floating box here. And this is because I have turned on designer mode. And all this does is essentially give you access to this kind of element and layer box, which allows you that little bit extra customization. So you can change the sizing of things down to like the pixel. So if I click on this image here, you can see I have more freedom over the sizing. We've also got layers as well, which is where you can rename these, you can group things, you can change like the positioning of your different elements on screen as well. And this is also good for accessibility because you can select something and then go up here and you can see accessibility, and that's where I can type in like my alt text and everything. So this is handy to be able, so you don't have to kind of try and figure out where the thing at the back is and click on that and whatever. So I'd recommend turning that on as well. Here you can also see we've got our download functions as well. So we've got SCORM package, and if I click this one, we can also download as a PDF, an image, view it offline, so it has HTML, or an MP4 video. And yeah, I really like the interactive PDF function. Again, this would be a great thing to embed into other things, even like a website, into another authoring tool. And it's a good way of creating interactive PDFs without needing the Adobe subscription as well, because usually you'll have to go through like InDesign or Acrobat to be able to create decent looking interactive PDFs. Whereas with this, you can use all their resources, create something that looks really great and has elevated interactivity on it above, the typing into text boxes. So that's a really cool feature. The view offline, so downloading as HTML, is how you can embed into Rise using the custom CSS kind of function within Rise. And MP4 video, so if you have your transition set to video, you could download that video again to use on other sites or other courses. Okay, so let's have a look at the kind of functionality that you get. And you can see I've made quite a bit of progress in terms of building this little course out. And if I preview, we'll have a quick nose through and you can see what I've done. So you get this really nice mobile preview mode. So as you can see, I've created my little custom buttons here. And you might notice that a little hand comes up here. And this is a really nice function as well, because it allows the user to see which elements of the page are interactive. So if they select it, you can turn this off and on as well, by the way. That appears and they know that that's what they've got to click on. And this is great for reducing navigation script. So usually at the beginning of me learning, you might add in a little slide just telling the learner how to navigate through the e-learning, or if there's any restrictions or anything. Whereas with this, all they have to do is click the button and they go, oh yeah, okay, I've got to click that first. Like, that's just saves me then writing out a load of information about how to click on things and whatever. So I really like that. That's a great feature. Okay, so let's just have a quick flick through and I'll show you what I've done. So I've created this kind of custom dashboard. And another thing to note in terms of looking at functionality and customization is that there's no options for states. So you can add things like hover animations in, but you can't add states. So I can't add a state to this so that when they've clicked on it, it will become a check instead of a padlock. That you have to kind of custom put in yourself or find a workaround. And I have done a workaround for something else, and I'll show you how I did it. So in terms of the customization, that's just something to note, that if you are someone that likes to, add things like hover states or visited states or whatever, that isn't actually available on this particular platform. I think this really shines on those kind of gamification micro-learning style courses where somebody would just be going through it so fast that they don't necessarily need that functionality. So I've had to adapt this kind of the scope of this project a little bit to fit Genially's functionality. But you can see I've created these kind of custom buttons here, and we have got just like basic text, things animate in. And down the bottom, we've got some navigation buttons, just a next and a previous arrow, and a home button here. And because this is a preview, it's got this plus and minus, which allows the user to zoom in and out of the page. But if I was exporting, I'd actually turn this off, so it wouldn't impact these next and previous buttons either. But as you can see, it's pretty easy to create something that looks nice. This is just a mix of imagery and some of their pre-built icons. So these arrows are available on their resource library. We've got these little window markers, and I love this window function. You can change like the colors of this. I've made the transparency a little bit less opaque so that you can still see the slide underneath, and you can change the animations as well. It does kind of pre-animate it for you, but if you wanted to change it, you could. And as you can see, I've then got this to change to a check, and I'll walk you through how I did this to kind of mimic those visited states in a minute. And if I still click on this, it again brings it up, so it doesn't impact on the interactivity either. And you could mimic variables as well with this, so there isn't the option for things like variables or triggers or anything like that, like you would see in authoring tools like Storyline. But you could have this set to be kind of hidden and then revealed when, for example, they click the last marker or something like that. So you could get around it. It's just a bit trickier. So I won't go through all of this right now because I've done quite a lot actually. But this is their example of their card function, which is like a flashcard. And this is really nice because you can use it for questions. You can use it for scenarios like I've done. You can kind of reveal information on it. You could use it for character profiles. That's got a lot of kind of potential with it. And we've got an example here of their pre-built kind of multiple choice questions. This is a sort of sequencing question, and it does a nice little jingle when you click submit if you get it right. Okay, again, another example of the card there. And this one is a really nice kind of way of embedding reflective exercises. So there is an option for like survey questions on this where the learner can actually input their own answer, but it's hidden behind a paywall. So if you're using the free subscription like I am, you can access it. So to kind of get around this, because I love and always embed reflective activities in my courses, I've done this where they have to kind of put the phone down and actually write down or type or whatever, wherever they are, their thoughts. And there's a timer option where they can select the clock and it will give them this 2-minute timer to actually count them down, because you don't want them spending too long in this exercise either. So that's a really nice function. And when this gets to 0, it pops up with a little message that says, good job, let's move over on to the next part of the course now. So that's kind of linked in with the gamification functions that we have on this platform as well. And I'll have a look at those and we'll explore the range of functionality. So as you can see, we're now back on our dashboard, and that's gone to a check. And then this one has become unlocked as well. Okay, so let's have a look at what you get in terms of functionality and interactivity. And I'll be honest, it's not a lot. So this is definitely the kind of program where you have to be creative in terms of how you use it to ensure that the learner doesn't get bored. Because, realistically, you're given text options. So we've got obviously bulleted lists, paragraphs, that kind of thing. And you've got widgets. But these are very gamification focused. So if you're not using this for a game, then actually there's not a mass amount of interactivity really. You don't get, labeled graphics or kind of sliders or anything like that. So they have introduced this new comparison feature, which I'll show you in a minute. But we've got things like a mosaic of images, carousel of images. We've got cards, which is what I showed you on one of the slides down here. This functionality here. And we've got, let's just go back onto widgets a minute. But then everything else is kind of very focused on that gamification. So we've got a dice randomizer where it will show you a random image, a timer, we've got graphs, a coin, so you can flip a coin, a countdown and the stopwatch. So if you're looking to create, or you're somebody that loves gamification, this will be right up your street. And there's some really fantastic examples on their kind of gallery of other people that have created games. But if you're not going to be using this for gamification, really all you get is kind of the cards, images and text. There's not a great deal more. If I go on interactive elements here, you can see that window functionality. We've got tooltip, which is kind of like a pop-up speech bubble, a bit like the marker function in Storyline. You can add audio as well, and obviously link or provide that navigation to other pages. So you can add buttons so that you can create kind of maybe more custom interactivity, and the same with this interactive area. That's like a hotspot. So if you were creating maybe like a hidden object style game, you could use these hotspots. But you can see that actually you get very, very limited functionality when it comes to interactivity. So, which actually can be harder, because you have to be very, very specific in how you're using it, very creative in terms of ensuring the learner's not going to get bored or kind of see the same thing kind of over and over again, which can make these kind of tools slightly more complex in that way. So they give you this really handy resource library as well. So if you're somebody that, again, doesn't come from a visual design background, or maybe don't have time to create custom graphics, because to be honest, not many people do on a live project unless you've got an in-house graphic designer. They do have a really good bank of assets that you can use. So obviously you can upload your own stuff, but there's GIFs, there's images, you can find PNGs with transparent backgrounds. So this is really super handy. Saves you having to jump to any other software like Photoshop or Affinity or anything. You've also got access to a load of shapes that you can use for various things. So I've made use of these speech bubbles quite a lot with this. And you've got like different versions of these things as well, outline versions, filled in versions. We've also got icons, and I love their style of icons here, this kind of chunky, cartoonish style icons. So I've used those quite a lot as well. And there's different styles of icons too, so if you don't like that style. And there's plenty of variation here as well in terms of the kind of icons for things. So you could probably find something that suits your needs without having to jump over to a different software like Flattercom. So they've made it really easy to be able to create something that looks great. We have got some illustrations as well. The only issue with these is I don't think you can change the colour. So if I input maybe one of these, like let's go for that world, you can see that you can't actually change the colouring of this. So if it doesn't fit in with your branding, then it could look a bit weird and a bit out of place. I don't think you can on these either. Let's just try another one. No, so there's no option to change any of the colours of the illustrations. So that's just something to bear in mind if you did want to use these particular assets, that if you are sticking to very specific branding colors, you may need to source things like this from elsewhere. But if that's not a huge problem, then there is some really nice character illustrations too in different styles. And yeah, it's a pretty substantial library. I mean, we've got people here too. We've got things like chairs, so you could create different scenes. Yeah. So if we go back, and again, we've got things like graphs and tables. Okay, and we've got questions as well. So we've got multiple choice, true or false, image and sort. And the survey style questions are behind the paywall. And you can create with AI as well. Again, if you've got that premium subscription. So as you can see in this one, there's not masses of functionality to actually go through. I'll show you very quickly the new comparison feature as well, because that is quite a nice one. So here's this kind of image comparison function, which they've just implemented, and it's super easy to do this. You just upload two different images, and if I click on it and click edit, you can see that you can also change like the display options, whether it's a horizontal comparison or vertical. And I can add the alt text as well, which I would do in this instance, particularly because I've added text onto the image, so I need to describe that. And then if I just preview, I'll show you how it works. So it's really, really easy. You just drag the slider bar up and down. So before we wrap things up, let's just have a quick look at some of these gamification features that you get, because I haven't really gone over these in too much detail. So we've got our coin flipper here, and you can change this to be heads or tails, win or lose, or yes or no. We've got the dice, which again, you can change the kind of dice it is. This could be quite cool for like maths games if you were using this tool for maybe like primary school teaching or whatever. And we've got like a randomizer, which is essentially like drawing a card from a deck. So you can choose it to pull out a random image when the learner clicks on that as well. We've also got effects, which I think lends itself really well to gamification too. So on certain elements, so things like buttons and these stickers and illustrations and icons and that, you can add effects. So if I click on the effect button, you can see it's these kind of little animated short clips or like GIFs. And you can have these set to appear when things happen. So you might have this appear if a learner gets an answer right. You might have the confetti. When they finish the course, you might have balloons or fireworks or something. They're a little bit gimmicky, a little bit cringe, but depending on your audience, they could be quite funny to use. So again, it's that real emphasis on this kind of this gamification aspect and how this program is really set up for that. And that is really it for functionality. There is not a lot to kind of show with Genially. That, as I've said, I think using this, you have to be really creative. It would take a lot more planning, I think, than people would probably initially expect. Often working with limited functionality, you actually have to be more creative in terms of being able to ensure that you're not having loads of repetition and that the learner just doesn't feel like it's a load of clicks and reads and clicks and reads. So it was actually more challenging in that way to use this than it was to maybe use something like Rise or Storyline, where you've got a lot more functionality. But that being said, I think for microlearning, for gamification, this platform is fantastic. I mean, it really lends itself well to a course like this, where it's that 5-minute chunks of kind of bite-sized learning, because you don't necessarily have to worry too much about that repetition aspect. So at the end of these videos, I am rating the All3 tool on 4 categories, and that is ease of use, functionality, customization, and skill level. So let's kick off with ease of use. And I'd have to give this a 4.5 out of 5. It is probably the easiest authoring tool I have ever used. The UI is really clear, like it's really easy to see where key functionality is, things like adding a page and deleting a page. Those buttons are really clear and you can see them, access them at all times. You can move through your pages really easily, change your kind of transitions and your colors super easily. The menu with the kind of interactive elements is very clear as well. Everything's categorized nicely. You can easily see how to change things like the background and insert your own assets. I think anybody could pick this up and be able to create even like a very basic course within, an hour. It is super duper easy to use. The only thing stopping it from being a 5 is that kind of having to do a couple of workarounds, I think, for things like the states. Next, we have functionality, and this is a tricky one because in terms of the level of interactivity, there is not a lot to work with. But I do think the functionality you get is decent. You get what you need, I suppose. I really like that image comparison function. I really like the all the gamification options and everything, like the dice. So I think I'm going to give it a 3. The functionality is very suited to what the platform is used for mostly, I think. And as I said before, it just needs that creative mindset and that strong instructional design behind it to get the most out of it. The functionality itself, to actually edit it and use it, is really simple. And I think they give you a good starting point in terms of the variation of functionality. Like having that dice already pre-built and the timers and the cards and everything is just a huge bonus if you are going to be using this for gamification. Next, we have customization. And again, this is another tricky one because you don't get tons of customization in terms of the like states and stuff like that. But what you do have access to, you can customize quite well. So you can change the color of buttons, you can change your background colors, all of the kind of pre-done shapes and icons that you get in that resource library, you can change the color of, you can animate things. So I think although there's not tons of customization options in terms of branding, unfortunately, obviously I couldn't play around with the brand kit because of it being behind the premium plan. I do think what you do have access to, you can customize well. You can add in like custom fonts if you do have the premium plan. You can add in your own logo. You can do things like that. So I think with what they give you, there is a really good range of customization in that aspect. And I think that resource library is great. It's a great starting point for people that are maybe quite new to visual design, or just like I said, don't have the time to be jumping to all of these external sites and finding those assets themselves. And finally, we have skill level. And of course, this is going to be a beginner friendly, definitely. Really just, I mean, I don't need to repeat it. I said it with ease of use, really. It is the most beginner friendly program I have ever used. And as a kind of more seasoned developer and instructional designer, I just find it really fun. It's so fun. And I'm so glad that I've had the chance to play around with it. And although I can't kind of export it because of not having the premium plan, I think I'm still going to keep it and still keep creating stuff. It's a nice welcome break from the more complex authoring tools. So I would definitely recommend it, even if you just do what I did and get the free plan and just play. It's also a really good way to challenge your instructional design as well. So if you're somebody that wants to go down that route, it's a good exercise in creating e-learning or courses or games or whatever with that limited functionality of stretching your creativity of how you take your content with this limited functionality and actually make it something interesting and engaging and not repetitive. So if you're looking to really challenge your instructional design as well, then definitely go for it. I think I'm going to explore gamification a little bit more with it and play around with those features, because gamification is an area that I don't do a lot of. So it's a great free tool to use to just play around and stretch and learn and improve your skills. So definitely have a go. And if you do create things, then let me know. And I would love to see what everybody else comes up with. And I will catch you in the next one.